You're listening to Tabletop Arcanum, a podcast dedicated to learning and exploring the hobby of tabletop gaming. Your hosts are Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, so sit back and relax as we talk, discuss, and joke our way through the hobby we love so much.
Several years ago, scientists discovered a way to clone dinosaurs from viable DNA preserved within the fossil record. After a few mishaps along the way, the process has stabilized. Today, it's the museums that have gone practically extinct, as shrewd investors have turned those initial dinosaur sanctuaries into bustling theme parks, true meccas for dino fans the world over. In Dinosaur Island, each player takes the role of a park manager at one of these premier destinations. You've been handed the reins to a burgeoning operation. Bring the fantastic creatures of the Jurassic, Triassic, and Cretaceous periods forward into the modern day. Early retirement is yours if you can make the park bigger and better than the competition.
Hold on to your butts. This is the Tabletop Arcanum's review of Dinosaur Island.
And of course, it wouldn't be Tabletop Arcanum if it wasn't for us, your hosts,
Justin
and Ricky.
Dinosaur Island. We talked about this in a couple episodes that we were going to before that we were going. Hey, we're going to play this game, review it, give you our thoughts on this game, and then Christmas, New Year's, your birthday, all kind of happened and took up some time. So it took us a little time to sit down and actually play this game, and we finally got around to it and playing it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But as always, we're going to start with a roll recap. I'm going to let you take the point on this one.
All right. So I was reintroduced to Nerds. Played a lot of Nerds. If you're not familiar with Nerds?
I don't think I'm familiar with Nerds.
It's kind of like Solitaire, but a lot of people are playing together, and when you get aces, you put them in the center, and you're trying to take the cards that you have in front of you and put them on top of that.
Oh.
Everyone has to use a different deck of cards, and after someone runs out of essentially their starting cards, then you count up and see who has the most.
Okay.
Very, very old school game. A lot of fun. It's great for having a ton of people all in one area. We played some more code names. Always a ton of fun. Ticket to Ride. Finally got to bust out my new copy of it.
Ooh.
So thoroughly enjoyed. And then, of course, I wouldn't be able to do this this review episode if it wasn't for me playing quite a bit of Dinosaur Island.
True.
Both with you and by myself. So
yeah, we'll save those thoughts.
Yeah,
because you got to you tested it solo. I didn't do the solo yet. So my roll recap since we last recorded and last talked. I got to play some Space Base from AEG. Got to try out the Exit series games. I did the Forbidden Castle and the Sunken Treasure of those two. So those are those escape rooms in a box.
Yeah, I saw those today, and I was actually very interested in that.
They're very well done. The thing I do enjoy about them is that there is some writing. There's a booklet that you almost like tear through, or some of the puzzles are like origami, like put these 2 points together and then it turns into a shape or number, and that gives you part of your code. And all the codes kind of go through like a deck. Like, oh, we got number 17. And you look at 17, it tells you whether you got the right code or you got it wrong, and whether you advance or not. So the positive sides of this is it's a little bit more engaging than the Unlocked series of escape rooms in a box. The negative side is they're one-shots. You're either cutting things up, tearing things apart, writing on things. You're doing something usually in both cases to create the game environment, and there's not really a way to not do that in most of the cases that I've seen. So they're kind of more of a one and done. You can't pass them on to someone else.
Yeah.
Great thing about the Exit games is they are a very low MSRP. They're like $15.
Okay.
So you're not putting in a huge lot of effort or money for something that's going to take you an hour for a group. Considering most board games are sitting at $50 plus range now, as far as the more elaborate ones that you don't destroy. Unless it's a legacy game, but that's the whole point of those. So, played the Oregon Trail card game. It's brutal, just like Oregon Trail.
Dysentery everywhere.
Not as many dysenteries as you think, but yes, you've died of dysentery. There's nothing that you can do about it. It just happens sometimes. Just like when you step on a snake and you die from that. A lot of the other mechanics you can kind of mitigate, but it's a lot of brutal of like you're not going to have enough supplies to make it, and it's a long journey to Oregon. Let's see. We also played Villainous. Got to play that out and test that. Which I'm going to hold my thoughts back on that one for now because I only got to play it the once. I want to play it a couple more times and get a little bit better going on.
And I think we're eventually, hopefully we'll talk about that one together because I do want to play that one and give it a spin. I know it was pretty popular at Gen Con this past year.
Yes.
And it sold out pretty quick. And
And there's some really good reasons for it. And then there's some other reasons that we'll talk about. Played Suro. That's kind of a group favorite. Played both a joust and a melee game of a Game of Thrones, the card game. Kicked off the Gloomhaven campaign. Did one scenario. We've got another one coming up later this week. I'm really excited for that because this is a game that is just pretty. It's got a lot of stuff, and you just got to dedicate time to it, just like those long role-playing games on your video game systems. Last Friday, I did go out to the local board game night, played 3 new games in the night. One was called Campy Creatures. That was a bidding game. You play as one of the classic campy monster movie tropes. And they're all kind of numbered, like the kaiju monster is the biggest and baddest, but then the blob is kind of the weakest, and the Wolfman, the Mummy, they're all there. Dracula's. And they're all kind of ranking, like, whoever plays the highest gets to take first from the victims, or the mortals, as they call them. And that you score points based on that. So, like, whoever collects the most teenagers gets more points. But then there's things like the adventurer or other kind of movie trope characters that get you points too. But you can also take negative points in the game because then you can take like you can get the hunter mortal, and well, he hunts monsters, so you don't really want him. Kind of neat. Light game, pretty quick. We also played Scorpius Freighter from AEG. That's that Rondel space game. A lot of fun on that one. Took a little while to get going. There was a couple mechanic questions that were like, okay, how does this exactly work? But once everybody kind of got through their first turn or so, it started making more sense. And as we kind of went through the game, it kept making more sense as we saw the structure of the game. Played a Rio Grande game called Beta Colony. This is another Rondel game. It was sci-fi Rondel night apparently that night. It was just what we had brought and were in the mood for. This one was a little bit more abstract than thematic, like Scorpius Freighter leans a little bit more theme. This one leans a little bit more abstract. A lot of fun, though. Colorful cubes, interesting components. Just gather resources, do things, gather more resources, do more one of those types of games. Played around Seven Wonders Duel. Played The Captain is Dead. Got to try out some of the expansions for the new Fireball Island. Played it already, but then my buddy picked up some of the expansions. So got to play with bees. And snakes. And a boulder. And a leaping tiger. Bees were a whole lot of fun because you pour like 10 little marbles into the volcano, and it's just chaos. Snakes were also pretty interesting. Tiger is very, very delicate. He's one of those, like, hold your finger down and then, like, you release the tension and it, like, springs out. Like those plastic jumping toys or leaping frogs. So it's one of those. And if he lands and knocks someone over, you get to steal 3 treasures. Which normally when you knock someone over with, like, a fireball, it's, like, 1 treasure. So, like, this is huge. It's very, very hard to control that thing and with any sort of seemingly accuracy. We launched him like 3 times, and like he did one of the times I like cleared the island, another time cleared the island, The third time, okay, we've been putting too much pressure. We got to do lot less. And, like, jumped, like, 3 feet, not even onto the island. Like, it was like, oh. So.
Fair enough.
It takes practice. You don't become a tiger jumper in one day, apparently.
Nah.
And then, of course, Dinosaur Island. Played that a bunch with you. Just to talk about it today. And Arkham Horror.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so. And that's while you were playing solo, testing the solo mode out.
You were at LCG night, and I was just along for the ride.
Yep.
I am going to jump back to mine. I did forget I started Hunt a Killer. It is a subscription box, episodic subscription box, but it's similar to like Exit, where...
Okay. I think I've seen that.
Yeah, once a month they send you a box full of stuff. It has puzzles in it, and after the 6 months of the subscription, you should be able to have an answer to the whole game. So,
okay, so it's kind of a whodunit mystery burning party in a box sent to you over 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. I know how that goes.
Yeah, pretty excited to find out, and got one done and have to wait on the next one, but yeah, definitely will keep all of you up to date on that.
All right, so that's our roll recap. Let's jump into our news. So there's one thing that was announced that I'm pretty excited about. Well, they announced more things that you're excited about.
If I'm allowed to be excited about them.
You are. So for me, I saw and was really excited when Fantasy Flight announced the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth board game. This is a campaign narrative-based game, 1 to 5 players, and so it really looks like a hybrid between Descent, using the app, and Mansions of Madness. So you got like this overworld map of Middle-earth, and you're going to be able to go from like area to area, and then, we're attacking orcs, so it breaks that out into like a battle map with tiles, and then you're doing like a tactical tile battle using that. So the campaign's being driven by the app, kind of like Descent does the same thing, where it'll break it up into battle sequences for yourself. That is just announced. They're taking pre-orders on it, and should be out second quarter, I think is what they said. So I'm really kind of excited to see how that one turns out. And then, of course, they released more knowledge and news for your favorite game.
Oh, yes. They announced some new... They announced some new vehicles for Legion. We are looking at, for the Imperials, the TX-225 GAV-W Occupier Combat Assault Tank. Now, if that doesn't sound familiar to you...
Bless you.
If that doesn't sound familiar to you, it definitely is the one from Rogue One.
Right.
So, they are, especially now that they are going into the Rogue One minis with the Jyn Erso and... Right,
you get Jyn Erso, Director Kennick's coming, the Death Troopers are coming, so, like, they're definitely like, okay, it's Rogue One era stuff, so... That was the really cool battle tank that Jyn had to hide from, for the most part.
Yeah.
At Saw Gerrera.
Oh, yes. That
Saw's rebels attacked.
There we go.
That's why I'm trying to like recall the scene. It's been a little while since I saw Rogue One again. Probably should fix that because I really do enjoy Rogue One. But yeah, no, it's the tank that Saw Gerrera's rebels attack, and that's kind of where like Jyn meets up with them.
And then me and you talked about it because it was one of those... They have a lot of vehicles for the Imperials.
It's like their militaristic order of, that's in control, that actually has a budget.
Yeah, I know, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, weird.
They did announce for the Rebels a X-34 Landspeeder. And essentially, it's going to be the Landspeeder from A New Hope.
Yeah, Luke's Landspeeder for common sake there. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
And
So
that's always been like a popular toy or vehicle that people always like end up having. I remember playing with a land speeder like it. It's gonna be neat. It doesn't seem like a military vehicle to me,
Yeah.
but
I'd like to see how that's going to play out in the long run, because tank, land speeder, not very,
well, if it's anything like the actual one from the movies, it will do circles really, really well.
That is true. That is true. Land speeder will probably at least be able to hold Jedis who'll tell you that these aren't the droids you're looking for. I don't know.
Maybe.
Next question. Yeah, exactly. It is a popular toy. I was actually looking to find one, looking to find a model of it for any kind of terrain. So
Right.
it's kind of nice that instead of me having to find one, it's just going to be there.
Right.
So,
and now you can actually use it as a vehicle, not just, hey, look, that looks pretty.
yeah.
So that's kind of the recent news, right? Mm-hmm. Kickstarter has a couple, one major item that I've been I saw and went, ooh, that's really pretty. I talked a little bit about it in a roll recap, but Calliope Games is doing a Kickstarter for Suro Phoenix Rising, the third Suro game.
Oh.
There's going to be a Kickstarter. There's going to be a retail version coming out, so no fret if you don't want to do Kickstarter, but there is a Kickstarter deluxe edition coming. One of the neat things about it is it has a grid that you actually put the tiles on, and you can actually pop out the tiles because the things can rotate or change on this one and flip them up. There's actually like a front side, back side to them. It's kind of weird. But you're trying to get lanterns and phoenixes, so the game is a little bit different. But a lot of that follow the path is still going to be there for us. The one thing I did see that I was a little bit disappointed on personally is this like holding tiles grid thing will not be compatible with the other games. Mainly because it's a different sized grid.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weak.
It is, but it is what it is. But that's on Kickstarter now, so definitely, I know, talk to your local gaming store because they are doing a retailer level pledge that your store can get it on, which will get their store discount so that they get their own margin and get their share of the cost. But that's still live for like another 20 days or so.
I'm looking at it right now, and honestly, this might come home with me.
It's pretty. So that is what I've got as far as news and upcoming things. Anything that you have left over?
No, I'm ready to jump straight into
Some Dinosaur Island.
Dinosaur Island.
So your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
And,
so let's answer that question about Dinosaur Island.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a game that should have been created, and is this a game that should you pick up? So innately, Dinosaur Island is a worker placement, resource management style game, and it is on the box 2 to 4 players. There is the Totally Liquid expansion that just came out that brings you up to 5 players plus a couple extra modules. And it does also have a solo mode too. So while the box says 2 to 4, it actually is really like 1 to 4/5, depending if you have that expansion or not.
I do like that they have the stamp on here, 2 to 4 players, but then right next to it, solo mode included.
Right. It's a feature. People do look for it. So
Yeah.
It's important to call that out. The other big thing, it's about 90 to 120 minutes, so an hour and a half to 2 hours is a game. And this is put out by Pandasaurus Games and is put out by Pandasaurus Games and was designed by Jonathan Gilmore and Brian Lewis. It was initially a Kickstarter and then did come out on retail. And then it was Kickstarted again when they were doing the Totally Liquid expansion, which also included the Dinosaur Island 2-player game. So like Seven Wonders has that Seven Wonders Duel, which was a 2-player version that was tweaked and changed a bit. Dinosaur Island, same idea. Tweaked and changed it a bit. That one is more of a dice drafting. A little bit more mechanic, but has a similar feel. Now, Dinosaur Island sounds like it is a very familiar Steven Spielberg knockoff. And a lot of the ways, first impressions of this game, it is.
Mm.
This is supposed to bleed 90s nostalgia and hit all this little like Jurassic Park theme notes along the way. And in short, it really does that. Now, you're not a dinosaur fan? Not a Jurassic Park fan? You're not going to get enough out of it.
Yeah. I did think the art is very pretty. It's very aesthetically pleasing. They did have a lot of really good, I would say a lot of the like attractions, the restaurants and everything like that had fun, cheeky names like Rex Mex.
My personal favorite is the Clever Grill.
It was a lot of cheesy 90s jam-packed straight into it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lived through the 90s and got to enjoy any kind of dinosaur fever during the original Jurassic Park, you will love this game. It is just fun to...
From the aesthetics perspective.
From the aesthetics, yeah.
Now, so that's kind of our first impressions. It looks pretty. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's bright colored. Like, we're talking hot pink dinosaurs. We're talking bright coins. We're talking bright... It's the 90s if the 90s was tried to put into a box. Mm-hmm. So it does a very good job at that. So let's talk about the setup and rules a little bit. So I did play this game in the fall and hadn't picked it, and then eventually got a copy of it because my Kickstarter came in. Mm. And then we sat down and said, hey, we're going to play this. And I did my personal experiment with you and said, here's the rule book, teach us how to play. Mm. So walk us through that.
First off, you're going to need a lot of time. There's a lot of pieces to go through. Setup is pretty straightforward. You just have to separate a lot. When I say a lot, I mean a lot. This box is jam-packed with a lot of stuff. You did get the Kickstarter Kickstarter Extreme Edition, so you did get a lot more in it than normal. I would like to see... I mean, you had the bag of just the regular pieces that went with it. Still, it seemed like there wasn't a lot of space in the box, so it's just jam-packed with tokens and pieces and everything.
Storage is a bit of a problem.
Mm-hmm. But once you get everything laid out, it does take up a lot of space. It does take a lot of reading. The nice thing is everything is kind of just broken down in the rule book to take you piece by piece to tell you what needs to be done. As long as you follow that, you do get pretty... it is pretty straightforward setting it up. It's just a lot of space to set up, a lot of separate things to set up. The one thing I did like... So there's 4 phases to the game. You have your... Thank you. There are 4 phases to the game. You go through your research, your market phase, worker phase, and then park phase.
Right.
Technically, 5th phase is cleanup phase, but that's just, hey, reset everything and let's go again.
Yeah. Get ready for turn 2 or turn 3 or turn 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of clean up everything you just made a mess.
I did like... in here, they did have an example for almost everything. So, if you're trying to figure out how to procure a dinosaur recipe in the... in the research phase, it explains how that needs to be done. If you're looking at buying certain things in the market phase, it explains that. The one thing that I missed, which is, to me, very ironic and kind of made me chuckle the second time I played it, or when I played it by myself, are the easily missed rules on the back. So I just completely missed those. But if you look on the back of the manual, they actually went through, and they probably had some sort of focus group go through this, and then watch them play, see if they missed anything, and then wrote down the majority of the things that are missed when you play. So that was actually really nice to see that too.
Okay.
Just to make sure they caught all those little tiny nuances.
So it takes a lot of time to set up. It takes a little bit of effort to go through the rules, and there are some things that are easily missed in it.
Yeah.
My personal take on the rulebook is it could be the font and the layout they use. Mm-hmm. Some things are very easily missed in there because it just seems to be like a block paragraph.
Yeah.
And not called out or highlighted like, hey, here's an example of it. And they do have a lot of examples of, oh, this is the phase we just talked about. Let's show you a little bit of an example. But the block formatting is a little rough. And I know that they're kind of going for that 90s nostalgia look to it.
Yeah.
But it makes it a little bit easy to miss a rule or two or three. Or when you're searching for a rule, hard to find it.
Yeah, I know I had some trouble trying to remember the exact nuances to scoring victory points. Especially when I played solo versus when I first played solo versus when we first played together. Mm-hmm. I thought I was breaking the game because I was scoring victory points way too quick.
Right.
It just turns out I'm good at what I do. But I digress.
You're a great dinosaur park manager, and you should probably put that on your resume.
Yeah, exactly. I tried digging through, and it took me a long time to verify that I had it correct.
Okay.
Because they don't necessarily point out, hey, this is exactly how you will gain victory points. Right. It just is kind of a small little blurb at the end of one of the other
sections.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. So setup and rules, not the greatest. Definitely need to have a organized plan of attack when it comes to getting this thing out of the box. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take a little time to bust things out, shuffle things, pull pieces apart. They do give you some spare bags in there, which is nice to keep like the player pieces for each color separated, so you can kind of make it a little bit easier up and going. But yeah, you're going to have a little bit of a setup and tear down time on this one.
Yeah.
And table space is definitely a prime. It doesn't look like it's going to take up a lot, and then you start putting out, well, each player gets us 2 boards to themselves. There's 3 global boards, plus the card stacks, plus the dice, the tokens, the bag. All these different pieces are all over the place. Mm-hmm. So let's start talking about components then. This game, again, bleeds 90s nostalgia. Mm-hmm. The cards themselves are in a good card stock level. I don't feel that they're too flimsy or too thick. The cardboard boards and player boards and all that seems to be good, hardy, like board game card stock cardboard. Where I've seen games where they'll try to like thin out on the player board, and it's barely better than a sheet of paper. These are actually cardboard all around. The dice are big, clunky, cool, amber colored acrylic dice. So very, very Jurassic Park. Like we're rolling like amber stones.
Yeah.
The dinosaur meeples are amazing, but those are a extreme edition thing. Mm-hmm. So they are definitely worth it for that. As we said in our game upgrades, I'm a big fan of like metal currency now in our game, because I just feel like it adds a little bit more weight, heft, a little bit more like substance to it. The base game without the extreme edition comes with cardboard coin, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing, but gets the metal coins for yourself, because wow, they really enhance it.
Really, honestly, sitting there and playing with those metal coins felt just good. It felt great being able to clank them around.
Right. The other big thing with the Extreme Edition is there are a couple extra plot twist cards, which are variances on your game. A couple extra objectives that just aren't included in the base retail version. But I don't think they're such a necessity. They're more like, here's a nice little extra purple die that might be added into your game. You might have VIPs added to your park, which are a third type of visitor. So that is all different things. They also put the UV box and a metallic ink on the Extreme Edition, so the box pops a little bit more. It's a little flashier looking. Not a game breaker for me. It's cool. It looks great on a shelf. Looks great on the table. But if I had the regular edition, I wouldn't be too upset about missing out on that. I'd probably miss the dinosaur meeples more than anything else.
One thing I would have liked with their components is an updated manual explaining that.
It does not. Yeah, the Extreme Edition comes with a standard 2.0 rulebook because they did gloss up the rules a little bit from first edition. After knocking down the rules already a little bit, this is cleaned up.
Yeah.
But it doesn't talk about, if you have the Extreme Edition, here's the extra things that you're going to have in the box. It's going to say you have 10 hoodlums. You actually have 18.
Actually, I was looking into hooligans. Even on the box, it says we're only supposed to have 10.
Right.
With the Extreme Edition, because they even go into the VIPs, they go into all the extra information. So me and you spent some time trying to figure out what's up with these extra hooligans. And even when we started flipping through that information, then we got a little more confused because they describe the patrons as being gold and then the hooligans as being yellow. They ended up making them pink. The VIPs they made purple.
Right.
We were trying to figure out where did these people come from? What are they doing? What's going on?
And Pandasaurus is nice enough that they did put out like an FAQ and an errata that does clean up some of that. But definitely, if you don't realize that exists, just going through the box and the component list in the front of the manual and flipping through and seeing some of these misdescribed components in the rulebook, it is very confusing.
Yeah.
Components, though, I would give them definitely a good high mark on the quality of stuff that got put in the box. There's a lot of it. The price tag is a little heftier on this one, but you are getting a lot of stuff out of this box.
We also did forget to mention probably the greatest thing that they put in for the
Extreme Edition. The first player Fast Pass slap bracelet.
Oh, the 90s are screaming at us.
You know, growing up in the 90s, I can tell you, this is one of those high quality slap bracelets.
Oh, yeah.
Not one of the ones that
fall apart after a week. Yeah.
After the first slap and now it's cutting you.
Yeah.
Because it's cheap metal and the shell around it was cheap. No, it's actually one of those higher quality ones, so I was really excited that that was what they upgraded for the first player marker. Otherwise, you get like a token with a little amber mosquito. You know, also very appropriate, but not as cool as a slap bracelet.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the gameplay. So, game setup, we finally get to take our first turns, and it's a like you said earlier, it's a 4-phase game. Phase 1, you're gathering your resources, taking turns. Turn 2, or phase 2, now you're buying like attractions or lab upgrades or hiring staff to give you new unique powers. And both of those are kind of done in player order. So like you go, I go sort of situation. But then phase 3 ends up happening, and that's that's where the worker placement kicks in. And then all of a sudden, now we're just kind of playing our own little mini game of like, okay, I'm gonna spend this, do this, upgrade that, do this thing. All for phase 4, when we reach into a blind bag and pull out little tiny plastic meeples of people, and hope we don't pull any pink hooligans, because those jerks don't pay, and they cut in line. And they hide from the dinosaurs when the dinosaurs break out and try to eat people. They're just terrible people.
Nah.
You know, makes room for paying customers. Come on. So, I really enjoy the gameplay of this Dinosaur Island. As much as of a pain, the setup and getting everything ready to go. Once you're in it, it's fun.
Yeah.
And there's very little downtime. Because for a phase 1, phase 2, where you're actually taking turns, are very fast, because it's you place a scientist down, you get the benefit, and then it's my turn, I place a scientist, then it's the third player's turn, they and it just kind of keeps going, and it's more of like, okay, here's our first stage of worker placement of who gets what scientist slot first. Same thing goes for the buying and the market phase. You gotta pay attention, because the thing you want may not be there if you're like third pick. And then you kind of go through and like, okay, did my engine work? Did I get the right pieces of the puzzle together to make this thing work in such a way where I'm going to make more victory points than everybody else? So what are your thoughts?
I thoroughly enjoyed it, both in the 2-player and in the solo mode.
How's solo different? Let's...
So solo, between the original, when right after you set up the board, you draw a card from a solo rules pile, and it essentially tells you what you need to discard between dice that you roll, available items in the market phase, available dinosaurs available in the research phase.
Okay.
So it takes a lot out, and there are several mechanics that change as well. You mentioned how dinosaurs could get out and eat the patrons.
Yep.
In the solo mode, or in the multiplayer mode, if that happens, it happens. You take those everyone back and you throw them straight into the bag and you keep going. In the solo mode, if that happens, again, the patrons are eaten before the hooligans, but if they're eaten, they're taken out of that bag.
Oh.
They no longer go back in.
Really?
So, granted, you only have 3, unlike in regular mode, patrons who are eaten in solo mode are not returned to bag, instead they are removed from the game.
Oh, man. It's
So
it's like they were actually eaten and they're gone forever.
So there's a lot more extra on there. I thought personally I had broken the game, but it just turns out that I'm fairly good at it. I will say there are a few things that could be cleaned up with the solo mode cards that they come with, the objective cards.
Okay.
There were a few things that I did miss on that were not in the easily missed rules, but then I went back and redid to make sure that I did it properly.
Okay.
But otherwise, both were enjoyable. I don't know if I would go out of my way to play by myself. It's a lot more fun playing with someone. Just kind of seeing.
There's a lot of setup for that payoff.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just a smidge more setup and a smidge more for the gameplay when you're playing in solo mode.
Yeah.
Because you kind of add a whole nother level to everything else.
Okay, I can see that.
But otherwise, playing it was very, very enjoyable. It is interesting to start sitting there and thinking about what you're going to be doing, how are you going to achieve building this theme park, and being able to see all the other tiny little things that pop up, the fun, like I said before, the fun little amusement rides and all that. There are questions that we had to ask while playing the game, like what happens if you have all these specialists on the board and then you get rid of one. And we had to look that up, and that is if you have to fire, quote unquote, fire a specialist, that you're going to lose those benefits that they received.
Including the extra worker that some of them give. Yeah, that was the real question, is those extra workers are beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, I don't know if they... You lose any bonus... Oh, so you do actually lose an extra worker if you fire someone. Okay.
Yeah, they grant you an extra worker and you fire, and you end up losing them later in the game because you only have a limit of 3 and you get rid of one of the ones that has a worker marker on it. Yeah, you lose access to that worker.
Yeah, meaning we both didn't run into that issue, so we didn't see it this game. So
no, it was a question of what happens, and we figured it out. But it's definitely like in those rules where we had to dig a little bit deeper to find that. Mm-hmm. So replay value.
I'd say there's lots of replay value, or at least a pretty decent amount of replay value, because there are a ton of specialist cards. There's a
lot. Yeah, the permutations and randomness of this game are huge.
Yeah.
Because even at the beginning, you get X amount of dice out of the total amount of dice it comes with to access for that game. Then you have 2 plot twists, which are a deck of cards that you get to modify your game with. The objectives change every game. So there is a lot of different shape and different thing. The general gameplay is going to flow the same way, but there's a lot of variance in how the game is going to work and how your game is going to be a little bit different from the next. Also based on what dinosaurs pop up and what things get rolled and how you're going to react to all that too. So yeah, I agree. There's a lot of replay value hidden in this. And then when you get the Totally Liquid expansion added on with different modules from that, there's even more options and more things you can potentially mix into the bag.
Yeah.
So finally, I guess, to quote a certain Dr. Alan Grant, Mr. Hammond, after careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. True statement or false statement for Dinosaur Island?
I would choose to endorse this island. I would suggest at least starting off, they do give you the 3 levels of length, short, medium, or long game. Mm-hmm. Definitely start with that short one, because the first game that we played, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't know if you necessarily had a full grasp on it, but we're both just kind of staring at the board like, well, I don't get what any of this does just yet.
Right. A short game gives you a very nice taste. It literally lasted us 3 rounds.
Yeah.
But within those 3 rounds, we learned a lot and went, okay, great. And then could jump into a medium-length game where we had more rounds to work with, had more, okay, this is how this affects this. This is where I need to plan. Oh, crap, I'm out of money. Or I need more dino DNA. Whatever the hitch in our giddy-up was. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely recommend this game as well for your 90s nostalgic worker placement. If you have a dinosaur fan, I would not recommend this game if you don't like fiddly games. If there is too much going on in a game and you want a nice, clean, simple game or easy to set up but easy to take down game, this is not a game for you.
Yeah.
There are some great videos out there on how to play Dinosaur Island, so if you're not one to read rule books anymore, because that's now a new thing, definitely check those out. They will help you through the setup, takedown. And I would probably encourage some sort of clever organizer or system for this game. It's really needed. I think that if you find a way to pack it in such a way in a box and where you can take it out, take it in very easily, that's going to help on those setup and takedown times. So that's my 2 cents. Definitely, I enjoy it. Game amount of players doesn't really impact that choice. It's fun at 2. I like Dinosaur Island too because it's a little bit different mechanics. Where a 2-player Dinosaur Island or 2-player Dinosaur Island scratch different itches with the same 90s nostalgia, so I'm okay with either one of them. I would say the sweet spot I think is 3 or 4 players. I did play a 5-player game. It's just a little too much going on. But if you have a group that normally shoots at that 5-player mark, it's not going to be a terrible experience for you either. So that is what we say at Tabletop Arcanum. I think this one gives us a pass for now. And we'll definitely be keeping it on our radar. And Pandasaurus has put out some other great games. The Mind is another one that I had played during the Christmas season. That was a lot of fun. So definitely a company to keep an eye out open, because they have some great people working for them making these games. So that's our review of Dinosaur Island by Pandasaurus Games. And next time, we're going to be talking about Nemesis.
Oh, I am so excited. That game just looks so pretty. It looks so terrifying and so pretty.
It's not Aliens the board game. But it is.
Yeah. On the inside, we all know.
We know.
But we'll be able to tell you.
It's just like this isn't Jurassic Park, the board game.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nemesis by Awakened Realms will be our next review. We'll be looking at that and getting to play a bunch of that as much as we can and giving you guys our thoughts on the game. So, until next time.
Hey, just keep listening. It's easier than rolling off a log. No, that was terrible.
It's easier than rolling off a log? It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's log. It's log. It's better than bad. It's good. You've been listening to Tabletop Arcanum, hosted by Justin Taylor and Richard Geese, and featuring the original music by Paul Moore and Isaac Gilbert. You can follow us on most social media platforms. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. As always, thanks for listening.